keeping you warm this winter.
This is 107 The Point.
Ooh, I like when you press that one.
This is Sports Talk with Phil Kornblum, Chris Bergen, and Pat Daniel. Sports Talk is heard across the state on radio affiliates of the Sports Talk Media Network and is streaming live on SportsTalkSC.com, as well as Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. The South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number to call in is 888-898-2525. That's 888-898-2525. Now, here are Phil, Chris, and Pat with tonight's edition of Sports Talk.
All right, welcome in, everybody, and happy New Year to you. Welcome to Sports Talk here on the Sports Talk Media Network. This is a live show. We give you a chance to break away from the national talking heads and all the play-by-play. We're local, we're live, we're here because we should be here. The Gamecocks, the Tigers played on Friday. This is your chance to express your feelings across the state about what happened in those games. The entire crew is here. I'm with Pat Daniel at our Dave & Buster studios in Columbia. We're joined from the Bergie Palace by Chris Bergen and from the Smitty Estate by Matt Smith. Happy New Year to everybody. Glad to have you guys with us.
Absolutely. It's good to be back for a brand new year. You forgot to mention, though, Phil, we were here Friday, so you and I actually got to do the version of the Manning cast during the Gamecocks Notre Dame game down at the Gator Bowl while Smitty was covering it for us. We had a chance to basically break it down play by play. So it was kind of fun on Friday. It really was.
It was. Gamecocks had a terrible ending to their game. We'll talk about that. Smitty was there in Jacksonville and Clemson. They a lot of things to talk about with Clemson. I want to hear from Tiger fans tonight and get their take on how that game went down and what they see for the future with the Clemson program. Has it hit the stale point? Has it hit that peak point now? Because I don't want to and by no means push the panic button here. It's only 2 years that they haven't made the playoffs, and the problem is that we've made the playoffs everything for the best schools in the country. It's like if you don't make the playoffs, despite what the coaching staffs might say and all that, if you don't make the playoffs, it's sort of a bummer of a year for you. If you're a school like Clemson or Michigan, Ohio State, those 7 or 8 who've been bouncing it around, and maybe that's going to now expand with the expansion of the playoffs because more teams will get involved, and maybe the fact that you don't make it every 3 or 4 years, that'll make it even worse, I guess, because the field's going to be larger. So I just wonder how Clemson fans are feeling about the status of their program right now, coming off a loss to Tennessee, in which I think their game plan in the first half was totally cockeyed. We'll talk about that and what they were thinking. Zach Willis will join us at 7:30, our last edition of First and 10 here on Sports Talk for this football season. And Smitty, you saw the Gamecocks and Notre Dame play one of the best games of the bowl season. It was a game that was so good it deserved to be in prime time. I think back and forth these two teams went, and the Gamecocks had that early lead they could not sustain. Their offense I don't know, it wasn't great. They had some big plays. It wasn't great. Rattler was, for the most part. They didn't have much of a running game, but they couldn't stop the run once again. The Gamecocks had trouble with a mobile quarterback and stopping the run, something that's plagued them since, the Eisenhower administration, I guess you could say.
Yeah, you're right about that. But, you almost need to distill it further because really South Carolina stood up against the run for the first 2.5 quarters, which makes you wonder, what if Zach Pickens is available? What if Gilbert Edmond is available? And I have to ask, what are the thoughts of players like that as they see? What's Miles Murphy thinking? Watching Clemson lose to Tennessee, what are those players thinking when their brothers in arms are struggling with depth in the second half, especially as South Carolina was against the run game? So I think the Gamecocks had the right formula. They knew they had to start fast. They needed the game script to go their way, and they need to get up multiple scores. Well, they did. I think the difference in the game is, yes, you're absolutely right. They couldn't hold up against the run long term, but I think that was a known commodity heading into the game. I think that what they needed to do was hold the lead, never fall behind, make sure Notre Dame wasn't able to get that lead so they could lean on the running game. And in truth, in the second half, Spencer Rattler and the Gamecocks just weren't able to string together first downs and keep the ball. Notre Dame won field position. They won the line of scrimmage in the second half. And had they just been able to come up with ways to get first downs, and again, it goes back, some of this may go back to depth. Nate Adkins, the only tight end on the Gamecocks roster, goes out in the third quarter with an upper body injury. And I can tell you from being there at the stadium, Juice Wells was not 100%. He left the game twice. And that guy was just gutting through it, probably because they were so thin at the wide receiver position as well. So I think not having your top wide receiver available to you and not having a tight end at all, I think that hampered Spencer Rattler in the pass game. And as you mentioned, look, South Carolina, you talk about the Eisenhower administration, how long it's been. Where is South Carolina's run game? Even with Marshawn Lloyd, they were not able to run the ball consistently this season. I saw that Eric Douglas, you put it at SportsTalkSC.com, he's on his way to the NFL. I don't know how Dylan Wanham and Eric Douglas are going to the NFL when they couldn't run block at their own level. But South Carolina could not make room in the run game, not just against Notre Dame, but all season long. And that made it a lot harder on Spencer Rattler. And I think that was a major key in the game. If Rattler makes throws and picks up first downs in the second half, then South Carolina's defense is a lot more rested and a lot more able to stand up to that Irish run game in the fourth quarter, which was the difference in the game.
All right, our phone number, 888-898-2525. South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number here on Sports Talk. Love to hear from you tonight. Get your feedback on what went down with the Gamecocks and the Tigers, and, of course, what went down finally, two thrilling semifinals on the same day in the college football playoff. You can't beat what you saw in the semifinals. What day was that? That would be Saturday. My days are all
correct,
all messed up from traveling, and this felt like, I don't know what today felt like. Today just felt weird. I never could figure out if I was supposed to be working or sleeping or mowing the lawn or watching
the
football.
problem is, Phil, we've got the Rose Bowl on right now. The Rose Bowl should not be played during the workday. We've lost so many great traditions in college sports. I don't know why this surprises me. But first off, the Rose Bowl and the Cotton Bowl should not be played after the playoff starts. They should have figured out a way to get these in. I get it. The Rose Bowl does not want to move off its mythical New Year's Day 5 o'clock kick time in the East. But, I mean, this is crazy watching the Rose Bowl here this afternoon on a work day for a lot of people.
Yeah, you're right. Is it a work day? That's the problem. I mean, banks are closed. Post office is closed. I guess all government agencies are closed. A lot of people aren't working today. I know Smitty didn't make any money for us today, so a lot of people aren't working today. So it's just one of those
not all on Smitty
weird feeling kind of days trying to figure out how to approach the day. But you're right. It is kind of strange, but it's what's become of the situation with the playoffs and having to fit games in here and fit games in there. So as I was saying, though, the semifinals were awesome, just awesome. I mean, you hate it for the field goal kicker for Ohio State. I mean, that was just, what can you say? Of course, it was a long field goal, but makeable, but it wasn't even dramatic. It never had a chance. As soon as it left his foot, it was dead left and was not going to make it. So you could tell Georgia put so much into that ball game, the emotion on their faces, Stetson Bennett in tears coming off the sideline. And, and so they advance. I mean, sometimes you got to be lucky. And they were good enough to hang in with Penn State and exchange blows. And then there's the Michigan game. You had some calls there. You had the touchdown, no touchdown for Michigan, which turned out to be huge. And TCU is they're an exciting club. They're fast. They've got some guys that can go the distance on you at any point. But if Georgia comes to play, this could be a real beatdown in the national championship game. This might be like the LSU Clemson game a few years ago in New Orleans. It'll be a no contest.
Yeah, and I would hate that because it just goes to the narrative. Of course, that narrative's going to go away when it expands to 12 teams. So it won't matter about the group of 5 guys because there will be a spot for them. But I would hate for that. And I guess I can't consider TCU a group of 5 teams since they're from the Big 12. They just seem like, they don't seem like they fit with the SEC and Big 10, do they? Now, they prove they can play with the Big 10 on Saturday when they beat Michigan. The question is now, can they play with the SEC? And they're going to find out because the SEC is going to run its best team out there. But you're right, Phil, if they show up, and I'm not saying Georgia didn't, but I'm not sure they played quite as well as we saw Georgia play during the regular season against Ohio State. I was impressed, though, and I say this tongue-in-cheek, at how well the fans handled the missed field goal.
No,
And that's what bothers me so much.
I'm sure they were calm, cool, and collected about it. Like, how many death threats popped up on social media?
It was awful. Yeah. I actually saw a Ohio State fan tweet out a picture, and I hate to even bring this up, but there was a picture of someone holding in his hand a handful of pills as if to say, take these and let's see what happens. It was just horrible stuff. And I knew as soon as he missed that field goal, that was going to be the response.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's sad. I mean, it really is sad.
And besides that, just from a football perspective, not just a human perspective, a football perspective, a lot of these coaches, and I'm looking at you, Dabo Sweeney, as well, and Kirby Smart. You've got almost a month layoff for some of these kickers, and they run them out there for a 47-yarder, a 51-yarder, and they expect the kicking game to pick up where it left off. I'm watching these games, and I'm not second-guessing. I'm first-guessing, thinking, this is bad. This is bad. Field position is so much more important sometimes, and these coaches are just running these kickers out there. And by the way, B.T. Potter's a perfect example. Where's your confidence level now? You fake one, you miss one. Where's your confidence level running back out there? I think the coaches as a group did a bad job during bowl season about selecting when to attempt long field goals. The stats tell us sometimes those are not high percentage plays. Even some NFL kickers will miss those 48-plus yarders. And then look at the defense after you miss one. It lifts them. It's a big stop. They get the ball almost at midfield. So I think some of the coaches made coaching errors in terms of the kicking game. I wouldn't blame that kid. I'd blame Ohio State for walking away with the timeout in their pocket and not trying to get more yardage and get a better look at a field goal.
You mentioned Clemson, the field goals. That was just amazing how the Tigers had such an advantage over Tennessee in yardage, in plays, in time of possession. They ran 101 plays and scored 1 touchdown. Now think about that. They ran 101 plays. They had the ball for 36 minutes. 68% of their snaps were in Tennessee territory, and they scored 1 touchdown. Now you got to go back and dig into that and figure out what the problem is there. Execution, play calling, not as a player catching the ball or running the right route or getting through the hole, whatever. That is just unbelievable. So when you think about it, Clemson had 8 possessions in which they would have had an opportunity to, let's say, to score a touchdown, though the 55-yard field goal, that's, maybe a bit of a stretch. But they did attempt a field goal. When you add it up, the missed field goals, the made field goals, the fake field goal, the stoppage on downs, the bungling of the end of the first half. 8 times they came away with no touchdowns. So that's just not Clemson football. That is just not Clemson football. And to only score 14 points in this game is, is it an outlier? Is it a one and done sort of thing? You just flush it, and of course you flush it because you go. It's a new team in 23. You start over, all new meetings, spring practice, the whole deal. You start building again. But you're going to have some of the key components back next year. Most of that offensive line returns. Obviously, they're set at quarterback now with Klubnik. There won't be any competition. Who's going to push him at quarterback? It's going to be all over again with the way it was with Uyangalele when he had nobody pushing him. You think Vizina's going to come in and push him at quarterback? So what happens at quarterback with Clemson? Does he get better? Is he the answer? I mean, he's got abilities. Now, he did play like a true freshman, the deer in the headlights at times in that game Friday, making some mistakes and some wild throws and things like that. The assumption is he will get better and be more in control, and the Clemson offense will benefit from that. But I think, guys, in that game against Tennessee, they could have used an Uyangalele in there, because one thing about Uyangalele in the running game, he was straight ahead, powering for yards. He wasn't scrambling, 8-10 yards behind the line and either suffering lost yardage, or when he turns it up, maybe you run 15 yards, but you only gain 3 or 4 because you're starting so far back in the backfield. So what do you think? You think, does Clemson have the answer in Klubnik and everything else on their offense moving forward in 2023? What's your take?
If they had asked DJ to throw it 54 times, I'm not sure the result would have been all that different. For some reason, Brandon Streeter does not understand he's got one of the best players in the ACC and one of the best running backs in the country, and he does not give him the football enough. Will Shipley should have carried the ball at least 25 times. They had 14 more first downs and possessed the football, 36 minutes in that game, Phil?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How do you not pound it in once you get inside the red zone? When they kept missing field goals in the first half, you knew they were in big trouble. And Cade Klubnik should not have been their second leading rusher. And why they continue to shield out both Shipley and Maffa in particular is beyond me. I don't understand why Clemson does not want to lean more heavily on their running backs as opposed to their quarterback as a running back.
I would agree 100%. That's a question that needs to be answered, Smitty.
No, I couldn't agree more. I think that going into that ball game, look, it's fine for us in the media to make the headlines about Cade Klubnik. We get to write those pregame stories about Cade Klubnik. But the player heading into that ball game, if you're a coaching staff, should be Will Shipley. Somebody should have gone to Will Shipley and probably next Phil Maffa and said, here's what we know about this football team. You guys, that's what we know we can count on. So when it's 3rd and 4, maybe even 3rd and 5, we're leaning on you. We're not going to put a freshman out there in his first start in the Orange Bowl, on an island in 3rd and long and having throw to receivers who haven't made plays most of the season. I could not agree more. Will Shipley would have left that game on a stretcher if I were coaching because he would have carried it 50 times.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and he's a guy that loves the football in his hands and gets stronger as the game goes on. All right, let's hit our break, and we'd love to hear from you. Phone number 888-898-2525. That is the South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number here to Sports Talk since 2002. More than $2.2 billion in lottery proceeds have been used to fund life scholarships for the state's college-bound students. You can learn more about the lottery's impact at sceducationlottery.com/education wins, and playing for fun is a win for education. Lines are open. Love to hear from you. We're back on Sports Talk in a moment.
Touchstone Energy cooperative members save more on electricity, and members save more on insurance, groceries, healthcare, restaurants, travel, concerts, and sporting events through Co-op Connections. Touchstone Energy is an alliance of the member-owned electric cooperatives, and as a member, the power is yours. Experience the power of co-op membership with Touchstone Energy and find out how much you can save on electricity and a whole lot more at touchstoneenergy.com.
Think big, life-changing. I'm talking education, inventive, next-level education. Wake up. For 20 years, education has received billions in funding. Where, you ask? Right here, across our state, in your own backyard. Who has done this? Well, if you've ever played the lottery, that would be you. Thank you. The South Carolina Education Lottery. When you play, we all win.
Tonight is the beginning of the 40th calendar year of Sports Talk. I was thinking about that. Well, 1984.
Yeah.
If you count them up, calendar year. So if you count the 84 calendar year, and this is the 23 calendar year, that's 40 calendar years. Also, something else that I created today, that if you counted just the month and the abbreviation for the year, it would be 1, 2, 3. Mm-hmm. It would be.
That?
How about that?
And I've got something that Smitty needs to work on for us right now, Phil. And we're going to put some heat because you and I figured it out. The show was actually born on September 4th, we think, somewhere in that neighborhood, 1984. That will be Labor Day weekend, which means it'll be time for the Southern 500. We need to have some sort of huge Sports Talk 40th anniversary celebration at Darlington.
Oh.
Gary Tharp needs to let you've been
Maybe.
asking for years, let you sing the national anthem in honor of our 40th anniversary.
Maybe we sponsor a car. Who could we sponsor that would be cheap enough? Who usually finishes 15 laps behind that needs the money? Who needs a $500 sponsorship for a tire? We'll sponsor a tire for one of the cars.
We may have a better shot at having the car where they used to do the at Darlington. They used to do a thing where the drivers would go down, hop out of the car, eat a banana, and get back in the car and drive back the other way.
The great H.
In between
Bailey.
races.
The great H.
Yeah.
Bailey. Yeah. We got some newsy things to talk about. Let's do it real quick here. 888-898-2525. So Brian Bresee announced today that he is leaving for the NFL draft from Clemson. And congrats to him. He did it the right way, in my opinion. You know, he stayed his 3 years. He played in the bowl game. He overcame an ACL. He overcame a lot of personal issues this year. I think he gave Clemson everything he had.
Oh, yeah.
This is the kind of guy you just pat on the back, say thank you for a job well done. And he's projected right now, like by PFF, the number 2 defensive tackle behind Jalen Carter out of Georgia. So why wouldn't you? It's going to be an early draft pick. And in his career at Clemson, you know, his numbers were not eye-popping, but I guess playing mostly on the inside, you know, drawing double teams and the like. He only had 51 tackles in his career at Clemson, 15 tackles for loss and 9.5 sacks. But he is leaving. Of course, still waiting on word on KJ Henry and also Tyler Davis. I imagine, knowing how they do things up there at Clemson, they might do them one day at a time sort of thing so that you don't take the spotlight away from a player. Maybe not, but no word there yet. I am imagining that Rook will come back. I think that's kind of what he was saying after the game, that he'll be back for next year. Now, South Carolina, since we were last with you, it's been an active time. DeCarrion Joyner, who is Mr. Gamecock, should be called Mr. Gamecock, announced he's returning for another year. So that's a bonus for South Carolina. Gilbert Edmond leaving, defensive end. Amos, running back, is leaving, running back. Eric Douglas, here's another one you pat on the back and you say, great job. Eric Douglas gave you 6 years as a center at South Carolina, did a tremendous job. I think he got everything out of his body and his skill set that he could get. And he's going on to test the NFL. Hot Rod Fitton is leaving, another defensive end. And Jalen Brooks leaving as well, announcing for the NFL draft for him. And, you know, these guys, I don't know if they got a chance at the draft. Brooks had 33 catches this year. I'd like to look this up. Antoine Wells ended up as the leading receiver at South Carolina this year with 68 catches, had a terrific year. The next leading receiver on the team was Brooks with 33. That's a 35 catch difference between your number 1 and number 2 receiver. I wonder if any other Power 5 team in the country had that kind of difference between their number 1 and number 2 receiver. Be interesting to look up. I won't do it. Maybe Pat will one day when he's got some free time. Also, of course, was this over the weekend? Grayson McCall, the word came out. Maybe it was yesterday. You were on that, Chris. Grayson McCall apparently staying at Coastal Carolina.
Well, you know, we talked about it last week, Phil, and the one thing I kept referencing is the fact that he had not signed anywhere. We had not heard anything, and I thought the longer it went was probably better news for Coastal. But the fact they're able to bring him back with Tim Beck and brand new head coach and an entirely new offensive staff, for Grayson McCall to come back one more season, perhaps 2. He's actually still got 2
He's got
left.
2 more years?
Yeah, if he wants to take advantage of that COVID year,
Mm-hmm.
he would, you know, he'd have 2 years. I can't imagine he'll play both of those, but nonetheless, he's still got those available. So it's a huge, huge deal for Coastal. I mean, that takes care of one major concern, was that quarterback, because, you know, was Jarrett Guest going to stick around? Will he stick around now that Grayson McCall is coming back? They've got a freshman they're awfully high on, got a chance to play late in the Birmingham Bowl, but no one with the experience that Grayson McCall brings to the table. So that's as big a deal for Coastal as it would be for South Carolina if Spencer Rattler decides to come back.
Yeah, that would be huge. And now, yeah, the question for South Carolina, Spencer Rattler. I mean, he ended up having a pretty good year. I'm not going to say a great year, too many interceptions, and he waited. I say he waited. I mean, things didn't really start to smoke for him until the latter part of the year, but he still threw for over 3,000 yards, 18 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, but it just seemed over the last quarter of the year, he settled in and felt like he was really in control. Let's pick up on that after the break. We'll be right back.
On Point Weather is made possible by our friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union on 107 The Point.
Here's your On Point local weather. It's a mix of sun and clouds with mild temperatures continuing all day long. Our high temperature is 70. Look for a low tonight at 51. Now for tomorrow, mostly cloudy skies and warm. 72 is the high. A 60% chance we get some afternoon and evening showers. And it's a 90% chance of rain on Wednesday. I'm Kevin Cohn with that On Point local weather.
Hey, it's Jay with the Melting Pot. So this is the time of year when we try to be responsible and plan out the next 12 months. I'm not good at it either, so let's work on this together. Go and grab your calendar, whether it's on your phone or on your refrigerator. Find your anniversary, your best friend's birthday, your kid's birthday, your spouse's birthday, graduation day, and write in Melting Pot. We're the premier special occasion restaurant in the Midlands, the Melting Pot.
With SRN News, I'm Keith Peters reporting the New York Police Department says a man accused of attacking police with a machete near Times Square on New Year's Eve, injuring 2 officers, has been arrested on charges of attempting to murder officers. 19-year-old Trevor Bickford of Wells, Maine, was awaiting arraignment after his arrest Monday. Ukrainian forces fired rockets at a facility in the eastern Donetsk region where Russian soldiers were stationed, killing 63 of them in one of the deadliest attacks on Kremlin forces since the war began more than 10 months ago. Ukrainian forces fired 6 rockets from a HIMARS launch system, the strike using a U.S.-supplied precision weapon that has proven critical in enabling Ukrainian forces to hit key targets, delivered a new setback for Russia, which in recent months has reeled from a Ukrainian counteroffensive. More details at srnnews.com.
Loyalty is an important quality, but it's not a given. It's earned. Shooter's Choice has earned the loyalty of people around the Midlands because they have great customer service, tremendous selection, and they've been the local guys for more than 30 years. And that should matter to you. If you're looking for the right firearm, ammo, AR accessories, even a gun safe, visit the folks at Shooter's Choice on Sunset Boulevard in West Columbia. This is where you'll find the experts, the folks that actually shoot, they hunt, or visit a big box store where you'll never see the same person twice, where their only expertise comes from watching some YouTube video. Shooter's Choice has the top brands. They offer classes to make sure you develop proper safety technique and skills. Most of all, they offer the best quality products at fair prices sold by good local people. If you can't make it to the store, you can visit online, shooterschoicesc.com. They're also on Facebook and Instagram, or they're waiting for you at 944 Sunset Boulevard in West Columbia. Make it your first choice, your best choice. Make it Shooter's Choice.
Dave Ramsey here. Do you want your money to work for you rather than you working for your money? Go see my friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union. They're not a mega bank and have been serving the Midlands since 1936, offering good old-fashioned customer service and free services. They'll look out for your financial well-being. With 14 locations, check them out today at palmettocitizens.org. Federally insured by the NCUA.
You've seen the news. You've talked to your friends. You may have even looked around yourself. Home prices are nuts. Seems like no one is offering any kind of discount, except Lexington Discount Homes. Discount is their middle name. Quality homes that fit your budget with the size, model, and floor plan that your family needs. You can still afford your dream home at Lexington Discount Homes. Augusta Highway near Ballpark Road, 803-951-1900 or LexingtonDiscountHomes.com.
It's January. It's 2023. A brand new year. Time for a brand new pet in your home. Columbia Animal Services invites you to bring home a brand new best friend for the new year. Time to visit petfinder.com to find that new puppy or kitty cat for your home. There's no better way to get 2023 started than to do so with an adoption special of just $23. Visit petfinder.com and get your new family member to start the new year. Happy New Year from Columbia Animal Services.
Have you fallen behind on your taxes and might be facing IRS penalties? Have wage garnishments, levies, or liens? Have unfiled tax returns? You want someone local and qualified. Don't fall for those national spots. Meet with me, Teresa, at Capital City Professional Services, and let me help you through your tax maze. I can help with all your tax resolution issues. There are options to get you back on track. Call Capital City Professional Services, 400-8683. That's 400-8683.
All right, welcome back, everybody. It is Sports Talk here on January 2nd, 2023. Phil Kornblut, Pat Daniel, right here at our Dave and Buster's studios in downtown Columbia. Remember, Dave and Buster's, be sure to get by there. Enjoy the national championship game a week from tonight's NFL playoffs. NFL regular season ends next week. Playoffs coming up, NBA, college basketball. It's all at Dave & Buster's, where you can catch all the games. You can eat, you can drink, you can have some fun playing in the arcade. You can find them in Greenville, Columbia, Myrtle Beach. Great places. I'm guaranteeing you, you'll love it from the moment you walk in the place. Check them out, Dave and Buster's here in South Carolina. Now, let me update a few things. If you want to join us, 888-898-2525 is the number. The Rose Bowl shaping up to be a great second half. 14-14, Penn State, Utah. 17 seconds to go in the second quarter. So that's a good ball game so far. And earlier today in the bowl action, Mississippi State, playing with a lot of emotion and a heavy heart, beat Illinois. It was actually going to be a 13-10 final, and then Illinois got into the lateral game on their last play, and Mississippi State intercepted it, took it back for a touchdown. That crushed a lot of gamblers, I have a feeling.
I'm wondering what the line was, because it was a fairly close game, but you're right, Phil. And for a moment, I got to thinking, now in college football, they don't make them kick the extra point. Had that been an NFL game, they would have been required to kick that extra point because of that. But I don't think they require them in a college game. But you're right about the lateral game. That was as well run up until the ball bounced off the turf and Mississippi State ran it back for a score. That's about as well as you could have drawn it up if you were Illinois trying to get back and win that game.
LSU smoked Purdue. I mean, it wasn't even close, even by the final score, 63-7. They used two quarterbacks. Nussmeier, he threw for 173 yards. Daniels rushed for 67 yards. So a 10-win season for Brian Kelly at LSU, 10-4. That's not good enough for them. Well, maybe in year one, but that won't be good enough for them moving forward, because that's program expects to win SEC championships. Of course, they did play for the SEC championship. They expect to win and get to the playoffs, 63-7. How about this? Tulane rallies to beat Southern Cal in a game that went back and forth in the Cotton Bowl, 46-45. How about a win for the little guy? And Tulane finishes at 12-2, and the Trojans finish at 11-3. And the quarterback for Tulane hit a bunch of big passes, 234 yards for Pratt and a couple of touchdowns. Their leading rusher, Spears, 205 yards. Caleb Williams threw for 462 yards and 5 touchdowns in a losing cause today. How about that? Now, a couple of other things to pass along. 888-898-2525 is our phone number. Get to your phone calls in just a second. Poll question of the week, and it has been very popular in day number one, and I wonder why. Clemson suffered as I put it, shocking loss to Tennessee. I mean, I was shocked. Were you shocked?
I was by the margin.
Well, that's what I mean. Shocking loss. And Tennessee was playing with their backup quarterback, and Clemson was playing with a new quarterback. I was shocked. Smitty, were you shocked? I think shocking's a good word. Pat, I think shocking's a good word. I like shocking.
I would agree with what Chris just said. Shocking. Not that Tennessee won the game. I mean, that's the team. Look, they clobbered LSU, the team we were just heaping praise on. But what I would say is I think everybody expected Clemson to put up, I don't know. You know what? I might be shocked by what you pointed out earlier, the amount of yards. If you were not told the final score and you just showed me the scorebook, it looks like Clemson wins the game. So I think what was shocking is they didn't do a better job of capitalizing on red zone opportunities and putting points on the board and that being a close game. So anyway, that's a long answer. I'm not shocked, but I do think the final score is somewhat stunning.
Okay. Well, shocking is the word I used just to shock some people. Anyway, shocking loss to Tennessee in the Orange Bowl. And they've missed the CFP the last 2 seasons. Now, that's in most places, that's not something to fret over, right? I mean, South Carolina's missed the CFP every year that has been in existence. All right. Clemson's missed it the last 2 years. A lot of teams have missed the CFP ever since it's been in existence. But when you raise that bar and the expectations are there, after a couple of years, people start to get a little bit antsy. But the Tigers still won 11 games. Ordinarily, that would be, parade worthy, and the ACC championship. Do you still consider them a nationally elite program? Chris, do you still consider Clemson a nationally elite program?
I'll answer that question. I don't want to hedge my bet here, but what is elite now in college football? I think that's an interesting question to explore. No, it is Clemson like Georgia right now, which I believe may be the only elite program in college football right now over the last 2 years. But is Clemson a really, really good program? Absolutely. And are they a really good football team? Absolutely. They just had some losses that kept them out of an opportunity to play for the playoffs. And I'm not sure they would have won a playoff game against either Michigan or Georgia because they would have been seated lower than them. But in terms of elite, I mean, how many elite programs in college football are there right now?
Okay. And so your answer is?
They are not an elite team, but they're a very, very good program.
Smitty?
Yeah, my answer is similar. I think I look at this Clemson team, and if they've got dating back to Kelly Bryant, DJ Uiagalelei, or Cade Klubnik at quarterback, I look at those types of teams at Clemson, and I say, can that team win the ACC? Absolutely, they're the favorite. I fully expect Clemson to win the ACC next year. But do I expect them to go and beat Ohio State and Georgia or Alabama? I don't. So if the bar is, are they a national championship contender? I say they are not elite. They are the ACC champion in 2023. I fully expect that, but I think there's a big difference, just like we saw Pitt last year, just like we saw Clemson this year. Big difference between winning the ACC and challenging for a national title.
Yeah, I would concur with the two of you, Pat. Any thoughts? You agree, disagree? Are we making something of nothing here?
I really like what Chris said, is what is the metric we are using here? If we're going by elite, meaning playoff caliber, so right now a top 4 quality team, or are we going top 12 for what the playoff will be? Will that still be considered elite? I would think that might be adjusted here in the next year or two. If we're using the current metric of top 4 teams, and no, they have absolutely taken a step back, but they are still a very, very good team. They still won their conference. They still reached an Orange Bowl, which I think we all can agree to consider one of the big boy bowls still. They are still just below the mountaintop, but I'm with Chris also thinking Georgia, I might put Ohio State up there as well. I think I might go Georgia and Ohio State as the only truly elite teams, even though Ohio State did not win their conference this year. Alabama's great, but I think they might have taken a small step back as well. One thing I would like to point out, though, didn't get a chance really earlier, was with Cade Klubnik. I do firmly believe he is the answer. I don't think the game would have been as close with DJ, but where I think DJ was sorely missed here was to be that calming voice on the sideline. We saw him in the ACC championship. If Klubnik made a mistake here or though, got to give a lot of praise to DJ, and he was doing a great job kind of coaching Cade Klubnik up on the sideline, and I think he could have used some of that in this game. And then also just, I think Clemson refused to make a lot of the same adjustments. They could have taken a page out of Notre Dame's book. Notre Dame realized that they were able to just run the ball down South Carolina's throat and wear down that offensive line. For whatever reason, Streeter and the offense just refused to do the same thing. And if they had just given the ball, continued to feed the Shipley and Maffa, we may have seen a different game. And lastly, I know I'm getting a little breathy here, but lastly, Klubnik made a lot of mistakes that you would expect to see a true freshman make in their first collegiate start. And I can't help but wonder, and I feel like a broken record, I've been saying it since the Syracuse game, I do not understand why Clemson went back to DJ after benching him against Syracuse. I think that if Klubnik had been the starter for the rest of the season, we would not have seen those same miscues and those kind of brain farts, for lack of a better term, that we saw from Klubnik in that game the other day. He made some mistakes that you just were very head-scratching, including the back-to-back scrambles there towards the end when Tennessee was begging him to run the ball. They knew Clemson didn't have any timeouts, and he fell right into that back-to-back plays. And that you have to know the situation, and he clearly did not. But I think that if he had gotten more playing time throughout the year, we may have seen a different game.
Well, it's pretty clear that Clemson in personnel packages in some areas has dropped off. Wide receivers, definitely not where Clemson has been at wide receivers. Might develop Antonio Williams, Adam Randall. Is Cole Turner going to be the next Hunter Renfrow type of player for them?
I think Antonio Williams probably fits that mold a little bit better, Phil.
Yeah, he could be. He could be the guy. They relied heavily on tight ends this year. Can't remember a year they relied so much on tight ends since they had Leggett a few years ago when they were a national championship team, a guy that could get down the field. He's better than the tight ends they've got now. He was a pro. He went to the NFL. And Davis Allen might go to the NFL as well, but he wasn't that deep down the field threat that Leggett was. So they are, they're obviously weaker there at wide receiver. On the defensive side, hard to nitpick up front or at linebacker. They missed, Trenton Simpson. He was hurt. Obviously, they could have used him. He would have been beneficial. Their corner play, their safety play, they got beat deep on a pretty regular basis this year. They got beat deep by Joe Milton in this game. So they got to improve in that area, whether it's the coaching or better players. I mean, everybody Clemson recruits is listed as a 4-star or 5-star, but they don't all play that way. So what does it mean? My thought is that Clemson right now is not elite, and they better look out for Florida State. And here's the other thing I wanted to bring up. Dabo is sticking to his guns, his principles. Some might say it's being stubborn, whatever you want to call it. But is it going to catch up with them? Because here's Florida State, and they got a commitment from a transfer corner that Clemson wanted, Fentrell Cypress from Virginia. If you go by rankings in the portals, here we go with rankings, but I'll give them to you. He's the number 4 player in the portal. So they got him. They got the number 9 player in Jaheim Bell, the number 1 tight end. They got the number 15 player, Braden Fisk, who's the number 1 DT, the number 23 player, Jeremiah Byers, the number 2 OT, and the number 42 player in Kyle Morlock, the number 6 tight end. And former Gamecock Gilbert Edmond, who I don't think is rated that highly, apparently is going to take an official visit to Florida State this week. He's out of Fort Pierce, so apparently they like him a lot. My point is, Jordan Travis is expected back at Florida State next year. They are not going to be the pushovers. They found something the last half of the season, gave Clemson quite a battle down there in the regular season. They're adding all this talent through the transfer portal. They are losing Jamie Robinson, the former Gamecock, who declared for the draft. But you better keep a watch out on Florida State now in that division. It might not be the cupcake Clemson's been used to, the cupcake walk through the division they've been used to over the last, 7-8 years?
Decade.
Yeah, really. Been a long time that they had anybody in that division. And, of course, they narrowly escaped Syracuse this year. They narrowly escaped Wake Forest. They had some narrow escapes during the season. I mean, you're allowed – elite teams, even the best, might have one narrow win that they pull out at the very end to keep their record, perfect. Clemson had to they were a Houdini act there for more games than you would normally think for Clemson in their in the ACC and in their division.
Well, and Mike Norvell has not forgotten to coach. I think the problem was he had to rework that culture down there into and reshape it into what he is used to having with a lot better talent. And you want to talk about somebody who has lived in the transfer portal. he has turned that place into his own playground, Phil. And I think you're right about Dabo. He's going to have to seriously reconsider his thoughts about the transfer portal, because I'm not sure you can survive moving forward in college athletics anymore if you don't spend a lot of time there.
And here's the other thing just to think about, and I'm just thinking out loud. You look at the Clemson sideline, and I could be totally wrong on this. I'm just throwing it out there. You look at the Clemson sideline during a ball game, and here's Dabo, who is now more actively involved. And I'm not knocking that. He's the head coach. He can do what he wants. He's much more actively involved in all aspects, it appears, of the game than ever before as a head coach. Of course, before you had a guy like Chad Morris running your offense, and you had Jeff Scott, and then that led to Jeff Scott and Tony Elliott running the offense, though they were younger guys, and you had Venables running the defense. But now you look, he turns to his right, and you got Brandon Streeter running the offense, who's a former player under him, or I guess when Dabo was there, maybe as an assistant coach. You got C.J. Spiller, who's the running backs coach under him. You got Kyle Richardson, the tight ends coach, who was a high school coach before he came to Clemson. You got Wes Goodwin, who was an analyst on the staff before promoted to defensive coordinator. You got, Mike Reed's been there for a while, of course, been with him for a good while. My point is, Nick Eason was a former player there at one point in time. My point is Dabo making a mistake? These are all good guys, and I guess they're good coaches, but it doesn't seem like he has that older guy on his staff who can look at him and say, Dabo, that's not a good thing to do. We're doing something wrong here. Let's do this. Let's don't do that. And someone he would listen to. I mean, everybody around him has played for him or under him or is on the team or played at Clemson. Don't you think they might feel they bite their tongue a little bit because he's coach, and it's hard to question. It's hard to – I mean, maybe I'm totally wrong. Maybe they do have open discussions in their meetings, in their conference rooms, and they do bounce things off of one another, and he is open-minded, and he does listen to everybody and what they have to say.
I think that's what Pete Limbo is for Shane Beamer.
I don't think there's any doubt.
An older voice that will tell him, no, that's not going to work. Here's why. Does Dabo have somebody like that will say, Coach, this is not going to work, and because of my experience elsewhere, here's why?
That's a good question.
I don't think there's any doubt that every staff, and I do think this Clemson staff has been reshaped with the loss of Jeff Scott, Tony Elliott, Brent Venables, just bang, bang, bang. I do think any staff could benefit, and who I always think of is Ellis Johnson. Every time we speak with Ellis Johnson and Chuck Reedy, and Ellis really strikes me as someone that will come up with stories and say, well, I remember when I was at Alabama and we were faced with this particular scenario and we tried this, which seems similar to what we're going to run into this week against Auburn or Tennessee guys or on the road at Florida State. And I think that just having that Rolodex, just having that encyclopedic knowledge of situations you've run into in college football is absolutely invaluable. If I were Dabo Swinney, I would go hire someone from that era of that age that is coached in 300 ACC or SEC football games just to have his voice in the room to give me that kind of input.
Yeah. Pat correctly points out that Streeter was there in the 90s as Clemson's quarterback, and Dabo didn't get there till 03, so he didn't actually play under Dabo. But he is a former Clemson player, and I think maybe as a former player at the school and playing under a coach who's been there as long as he has, I just don't know if you can be forceful. Can you stand up and say, that's not a good decision? I don't know. Maybe I'm totally wrong. Maybe they do have that ability to stand up in there and change things, and he listens to them and follows what they have to say. But he does appear to be, very much active in every aspect. You watch him on the sideline, he's got the headset on. He's involved with the offensive huddle. He's involved with the defensive huddle. He's involved in the special teams huddle,
And Phil, to add, you're making great points here. One more name I'd like to throw out there that I don't think we've talked about how much they missed him was Robbie Caldwell. And not only would he be a calming voice, but also you always have to kind of have that jokester on the sideline that loosens everybody up. In intense moments, he kind of helps everybody relax. And just think about all the sound bites over the years from Robbie Caldwell, all the
Mm.
funny things he would say. And he just kind of always came across to me as the guy that would help loosen everybody up. And right now, it just seemed like at times on the sideline, everybody was so tense and just kind of looking at each other for somebody to help ease that pressure. And I wonder if they don't miss him a lot too.
Yeah, I should mention Thomas Austin's a first-time coach, but Robbie Caldwell could have been that older head. Now, he's still around the program. Woody McCorvey is still around the program, but they're not actively coaching, so you wonder, how much of a difference that makes. But you look at the number of young coaches on that offensive staff, and they all might one day become great coaches. They might be considered great coaches now. It's your own interpretation. But, Brandon Streeter, C.J. Spiller, Thomas Austin, Kyle Richardson, Grisham at wide receiver. This is their first coaching job for each one of them. Am I right about that? Each one of them, Clemson is their first on the field coaching job.
Often the case, and I would not pick. Look, I'm not picking on Brandon Streeter. I think he's in a tough position, but some of those names that you're mentioning, Corn, where else would they get a top 10 college football job? What other team in the top 10 would have Brandon Streeter as its offensive coordinator?
Good point.
It's only because of the connections at Clemson that they have elevated. And that doesn't mean the program can't work that way, but your point is valid too. Then what those guys have to do is now they have that experience. Hey, learn from it. You've got to learn from it and get better, because I don't think they've been good enough so far.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. Let's squeeze in a phone call before we hit the top of the hour. 888-898-2525. South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number. We go to Sam in Charleston. Sam, you're the first caller of 2023 on Sports Talk. Congratulations. You'll have all kind of prizes being delivered to your address over the next 24 hours.
Oh, sweet. That'd be awesome.
One of those prizes will be a personal visit from Smitty. Smitty will be there by 10 o'clock tonight, so have dinner ready.
Don't worry. I got some sausage burritos. So.
Oh, you can't. Nice. Smitty loves sausage burritos.
I'll be there by 8.
So I have a couple of questions to talk about a few things for tonight. I'd like to point out. I saw your poll question where you just said about Clemson. I really do think Clemson will be the top 25 school in the country, just because they have a good football team and stuff, but their fans are obnoxious sometimes, because I think sometimes when you win, sometimes you lose, but I'm trying to be careful on the air about this, but I don't see Clemson being a top 25 program, because Dabo Sweeney has the bad attitude from each team. He should be kicked out, be suspended for that, because I know he's a great coach. He did great things by Clemson. But the thing is that, speaking of which, have you seen Townsend versus Cougars?
Have we seen who?
There's a home game on the 7th, I think, on this Saturday against who's playing? I think it would be Townsend, or 13th straight win this year.
Oh, you mean the Cougars?
Hey, how about them, our city, baby?
23rd ranked Cougars. Yeah. Thank you very much, Sam. Yeah, the College of Charleston, for the first time in 20 years, is in the AP ranking. Let me touch on that while we've got a moment here. They are ranked 23rd in the AP ranking this week. They are getting it done, and looking forward to doing more basketball here coming up. Purdue is number 1, followed by Houston, Kansas, UConn, Arizona, Texas, Alabama, Tennessee, Gonzaga, UCLA. Virginia's 11, Miami's 12, Arkansas is 13, Wisconsin is 14, Indiana 15, then it's Duke, TCU, Xavier, Baylor, Missouri, New Mexico 21, followed by Auburn, the Cougars, Ohio State, and Iowa State. Clemson, despite being 3-0 in the ACC, did not receive a vote.
That's a shame.
Not a vote.
That's a lot of people not paying attention.
Well, maybe
because
the
that's a good basketball
ACC,
team.
the ACC only has 3 in the top 25. Maybe people don't figure you beat NC State, you beat Wake Forest, you beat Georgia Tech. That's not enough to show them. Show me more. Meantime, the USC women. Go ahead.
I've always said Clemson and South Carolina on the men's side have to do more than most programs because they just don't get any respect. And obviously, from a national perspective, that's point one.
USC women, unanimous number one again in the AP women's ranking, and they play tonight at Georgia. Tipping off in just a little bit. Okay, thank you for the phone call, Sam. We'll take more calls. We've got First and 10 with Zach Willis as well. Coming up, we'll be right back.
The only afternoon local talk radio in Columbia is the Afternoon Drive with Kev. It's all about you. It's your phone calls. It's my challenging topics. All the news, traffic, and weather weekdays, 4 p.m. on The Point.
Press that button, home stew.
WQXL Columbia, W264DF.
From the Bart Fireside Studio, the solution for keeping you warm this winter.
This is 107 The Point.
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm Keith Peters reporting. Chief Justice John Roberts says the safety of judges is essential to America's court system. Correspondent Greg Clugston reports.
In his annual year-end report about the federal judiciary, Roberts praised programs that protect judges, saying that we must support judges by ensuring their safety. Roberts and other conservative Supreme Court justices were the subject of protests, some at their homes, after the May leak of the court's decision that ultimately overturned Roe v. Wade. Roberts thanked members of Congress who are attending to judicial security needs, and he said programs that protect judges are essential to run a system of courts. Greg Clugston, Washington.
A man accused of attacking police with a machete near New York's Times Square on New Year's Eve was arrested on charges of attempting to murder police officers. Trevor Bickford, 19, also faces attempted assault charges from the attack that injured 2 officers at the edge of the high security zone where throngs of New Year's revelers were gathered. Ukraine says about 400 Russian soldiers have died in a missile attack on a building in a city in the occupied Donetsk region.
The Russians are saying that this facility, a school that was being used by Russian forces as a base, was hit by HIMARS missiles, those missiles that have been provided by the Americans to Ukraine. And this number 63 is very different from the one that has been given by the Ukrainian authorities. The army here say that 400 Russian soldiers were killed, 300 wounded after this attack.
The BBC's Hugo Bachiga. Flower-covered floats, marching bands, and equestrian units celebrated the new year on a chilly but dry Monday as the 134th Rose Parade slipped through a gap in California's siege of drenching storms. More at townhall.com.
Hi, I'm Al Abaroa, founder of Knight Strategic Wealth. Inflation is a problem, markets are volatile, and the risk of running out of money in retirement is real. That's why I love annuities, and you should too. Your financial advisor doesn't want you to know that with our annuity strategy, when the stock market goes up, you earn a market-linked return that locks in every year, and when the stock market goes down, your annuity won't lose a dime. There are no unnecessary fees, and it works for your investments, money at a brokerage firm, or even money at a bank. It's simple, it's safe, and you should only invest if you learn the facts. And that's why savvy investors work with us. Want to learn more? Text FREE to 833-898-0500, and we'll send our retirement readiness kit directly to your phone right now. If you want to use safe, low-fee annuities to build a retirement portfolio that will go up with the market and never lose money, get our retirement readiness kit today and see how this strategy can help secure your future. Text FREE to 833-898-0500. Text FREE to 833-898-0500.
Commercials.
Israeli forces have killed 2 Palestinians during a confrontation that erupted when troops entered a Palestinian village in the West Bank. Correspondent Karen Chamas reports.
Thousands gathered in Jenin to mourn the 2 men killed earlier in the day. The violence was sparked in nearby Kafr Dan village, where Israel's military demolished the family homes of 2 Palestinian men. Israel accused the men of having killed an Israeli soldier in a firefight in September. Israel's military said troops came under heavy fire and fired back at the shooters. It was the latest bloodshed in the region that has seen Israeli-Palestinian tensions surge for months. An Israeli rights group, B'Tselem, said 2022 was the deadliest year for Palestinians since 2004, a period of intense violence that came during a Palestinian uprising. I'm Karen Chamas.
News and analysis at townhall.com. I'm Keith Peters reporting.
On Point Weather is made possible by our friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union on 107 The Point.
Here's your on-point local weather. It's a mix of sun and clouds with mild temperatures continuing all day long. Our high temperature is 70. Look for a low tonight at 51. Now for tomorrow, mostly cloudy skies and warm. 72 is the high. A 60% chance we get some afternoon and evening showers. And it's a 90% chance of rain on Wednesday. I'm Kevin Cohn with that on-point local weather.
WQXL Columbia, W264DF.
From the Bart Fireside Studio, the solution for keeping you warm this winter.
This is 107 The Point. Ooh, you shouldn't have pressed that button. Oh. Now you get this.
Welcome back to Sports Talk on the Sports Talk Media Network. You can reach the guys with the South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number, 888-898-2525. That's 888-898-2525. Now back to Phil, Chris, and Pat with the second hour of Sports Talk on the Sports Talk Media Network.
Okay, we're back at you here in 2023, show number uno here of 2023. Can you believe it's 2023? Does it feel like 2023 to everybody out there?
We're all old enough to remember Y2K, Phil. Remember the Earth was going to end.
It's 23 years ago. Can you believe it's been 23 years since Y2K?
Where is my self-driving car?
Oh, it's out there. It's out there.
Hovercrafts now.
Yeah. We were supposed to be like what cartoon was that had the
Jetsons?
The
The
Jetsons.
Jetsons.
Yeah. We're supposed to be like the Jetsons. I'm supposed to be like George and Wilma. Was it Wilma? Was the wife?
No, that was Fred Flintstone's wife.
Oh, that was Fred.
Let's talk about it. That was the other end of the spectrum. From
Okay.
cavemen to space
What was
age,
George's wife's name?
Jane.
Jane?
Yep.
Jane. Yep.
Oh, and
That was
Astro
her daughter.
and Astro the dog,
Judy,
right?
yep.
Astro was the dog.
Astro.
Yep.
Yep.
Smitty, you have an Astro.
I do. I have an Astro dog, and Rosie was the maid.
Rosie was the maid.
Let's not forget, guys, too, Back to the Future. When they went to the future, they went to 2015 and had hoverboards, flying cars. So
That's exactly right.
we're nearly a decade past that at this point.
And they only reached the 2015, huh? That's
Yeah,
amazing.
in Back to the Future, they had a 12-team playoff already by 2015.
really.
So we're way behind.
Really.
Pat, you want to feel really old. I was watching last night a rerun of NCIS, and Biff was a special guest star on that show.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, okay.
He's
Thanks for
gained a
that.
few pounds from Back to the Future as well.
Well, I don't know about you guys. I'm still trying to wrap my head around 2020. I feel like it's 2019 entering 2020 right now. It's hard to believe it's 2023.
You're still stuck in 2020?
I'm not alone in that, am I? These last 3 years have just been a blur of confusion.
Yeah. All right. Phone number 888-898-2525. South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number 1414. Penn State, Utah now, early third quarter. Let's get back to the phones. We've got recruiting coming up for you. Oh, yeah. It's a new year. It's new recruiting. We'll bring that to you coming up in a little bit. Zach Willis at the bottom of the hour. The coach will share his thoughts on what he saw from the Tigers and Gamecocks in their bowl games on Friday. We go back to your phone calls, 888-898-2525. And it's Keith in Camden. Hello, Keith. Happy New Year to you. Welcome into Sports Talk.
Happy New Year to you guys. I hate to be second, but oh well.
Okay, that's all right.
I joined a little late. I caught you on the tail end talking about Clemson, but I apologize if earlier you spoke about the Carolina game, but pretty disappointing. You love those trick plays when they work, but I kind of felt like we were a little overboard, too much east-west, and I think we got a good idea of areas that we need to improve on. Overall, it's hard to moan and groan when you score 34 points and defense scores 2, but it was just ugly. I don't know what you think about it, but You know, what did we give up? 550 yards on defense?
Yeah. Yeah, he gave up
Yeah.
a bunch. He gave up, give you the total here. He gave up total offense 558,
Yeah.
264 on the ground. You knew Notre Dame was going to run the ball coming in.
Oh, yeah.
You knew that. You just had to try to make them one-dimensional, but you didn't because they threw for almost 300 yards, though you did come up with 3 interceptions. And, you know, you had to like the fact that what did Gamecock have in that game? They had 2 pick sixes. They had 2 pick sixes. And they also had a touchdown off of fake field goal. No, fake punt. Fake punt. What was it, Smitty? Fake punt. Fake. What was it? Fake field goal.
Well,
no, fake punt. Fake punt.
It was odd. It was a fake field goal, but they sent Kai Kroger out there as the kicker, so it should have been a dead giveaway.
Is that
they had him in punt? Yeah, they had it in punt formation, but it was really short. It would have been a very short, like it was too close to punt. It was like 39 yards. Or whatever it was. I guess he could have punted from there, but they ran out there quickly. It was really, who are you going to credit? Pete Limbo is brilliant. They ran out there so fast, Notre Dame was confused, and Hunter Rogers got down the field uncovered, and of course Kai Kroger's not going to miss you. So it was a fake punt. I guess I should say that, but it's just that it was such kind of like a short formation. It was all done in such a muddle huddle quick fashion that it was all mixed up. But it was a great call from Pete Limbo as usual.
Phil, 21 points come from special teams. I mean, you look at that offense, and it just seemed we couldn't stretch the field. I mean, we just didn't have the receivers. I don't know. I get too wrapped up in it while I'm watching it, but you take away those 3 scores and, you know, the offense.
Okay, now I'm going to chastise you. I don't believe in taking away scores. I mean,
I don't believe
it's a complete game. It's a complete game. I mean, your special teams, and South Carolina has made special teams now, obviously, a major part of what they do. So if they do something from special teams, it counts. If the defense gets a turnover and scores on it, it counts. It's all part of playing football, you know?
Hey, I'll give you that. I'm going to put check Phil, but I'm going to put an X on our offense.
Okay.
We got to score more points.
Well, Rattler.
You can't be Houdini every week.
You can't have Rattler as your leading rusher. He had 37 rushes, and Smitty, I got to believe few of those rushing yards came as predetermined. I got to believe they were all off of scrambles.
They were for the most part. Yep.
Amos came in early, ran the ball one time, and then that was it. What's up with that?
He ran it one time for -2. Shouldn't have lost those 2 yards.
I know. Yeah.
He shouldn't have lost those 2 yards.
The bar should not be set that high, though, Phil.
Look,
the strangest one should be Christian Beal Smith. For all the hullabaloo about him transferring to South Carolina, they got nothing out of him. He carried the ball 3 times for 8 yards. Maybe he wasn't healthy. They said he was healthy. Who knows? They never tell the truth about the health of the players. You never know who's healthy, who's not healthy. McDowell carried it 6 times. So
you blow on him, he'd fall down. So, you know, look, y'all have a good night. Love the show. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Thank you very much. How are the Gamecocks going to get better in the running game?
It's an absolutely great question.
I mean, how are they going to get better in the running game? I mean, is it the offensive linemen? Now they'll be replacing their center. They'll be replacing their right tackle. They'll be replacing their right guard. I think he's gone as well. I think, yeah. So the whole right side, the center, the right side, and the 2 on the left side might need to be replaced because I mean they're not very. I don't think they're extremely good players on the left side. That whole offensive line might need a revamp. And who knows if it's going to be Greg Atkins coaching them or Lonnie Teasley coaching them next year. That too needs to be resolved.
But Phil, then you go back and look at some of their other games, like for instance, against Tennessee, and that's sort of the high water mark, obviously, for their offense this year. 153 yards rushing in that ball game against Tennessee. Now, not a great defense, and I think we'd all agree probably Notre Dame's was better. But it almost got, especially in the second half, and Smitty can speak to this better, but just watching the game on television, it was almost as if they didn't even try in the second half. What they have, Smitty, 5 of their final 6 drives, I think in the second half were 3 and outs because they basically just threw it every time.
They did throw it every time. They got to the point where they realized they weren't making any hay, And so it was either stick with the run game or just give it to Rattler 3 times and have him try to make a play. And look, guys, this was not unlike the offensive game plan they ran in the victories against Clemson and Tennessee. They were just making plays down the field. That's why I kept going back to the injuries to Nate Adkins and Juice Wells. I think had Juice Wells been fully healthy, I'm not saying Carolina wins, but I'm saying that they make more plays down the field to Wells. Imagine that Clemson game, but take the Juice Wells long touchdown pass away, right? They probably don't win that.
I've
Well, in
got to
this case,
chastise you like I just did Keith. You can't take it away. It happened.
Okay, no, I'm saying what I'm pointing out is without his playmaking ability, it's tough to win ball games. And I'm saying he was out there, but he wasn't 100%.
Yeah.
So in the box, that's why I keep bringing it up, because in the box score, it looks like, well, Juice Wells played. It looks like about the whole game. What's the big deal?
Yeah.
Well, he missed some parts of the game, and he wasn't 100%. And so Spencer Rattler drops back, and now who's he looking for? DeCarrion Joyner? Well, Joyner, outstanding athlete. That guy, has not taken that many snaps out there with Rattler throughout the season, right? I mean, Marion Brown, that guy is not a number one receiver. Very good football player. I'm just pointing out, like,
and Atkins
Chris is
getting
saying,
hurt. Atkins getting hurt him too, right?
Atkins got hurt.
Yeah.
It's a tight end. So and now and there's no Marshawn Lloyd available in the run game, and Juju McDowell is not a traditional number one running back. And as you said, Christian Beal-Smith was giving you nothing. So a lot was put on Spencer Rattler in the second half, and they almost pulled it off anyway. That's why you saw the fake punt in the first half, because Shane Beamer and Pete Limbo and that coaching staff knew, guys, we need to be up like 3 scores because there's no way we can hold up the whole game as we're got this thing put together with duct tape and chicken wire. And they almost did it. They almost pulled it off. They were up 24-10, and they almost pulled it off. Came all the way back with 2 pick sixes to tie the game late, but it just wasn't enough. And so I'm just pointing out, that's why I'm really torn on how to look at this bowl game. I think there's a part of me that says Gamecock fans, you should be disappointed and all of that. But there's another part of me that says, I don't know. This is not anything like the team that's going to take the field against North Carolina to kick off 2023. You won't have these depth issues in September of next year.
To Chris's point a minute ago, because he got me curious. In the second half, the Gamecocks had 7 offensive drives. 5 of those drives were 3 and outs for a combined -9 yards.
Which, and the comment you just made leads me to wonder how many yards is Drake May going to pass for against the Gamecocks in September in Charlotte.
Well,
but it would be cool.
Interceptions, yeah.
It would be cool if Rattler comes back. Let's touch on this for a minute and then we'll hit the break and do recruiting. But let's talk about Rattler and coming back, what it would mean for South Carolina. And why he should come back. I definitely think he should come back. I don't know what kind of advice he's getting, what people are telling him. He made some great strides this year. He improved his performance in a number of ways. I think he finally figured out, and I'm not trying to sound like a quarterback guru here, but he, kind of figured out how to quiet his feet, I think, in the second half of the season. His footwork seemed to be much better, and I think that led to better passes. The ball was just put right on the money in many, many cases, and he just seemed like a calmer, more in-control guy. Now, he did show that in that Arkansas game in week 2 when they had to rally, and he threw for 374 yards. But, for many of those games in the middle there, it was sort of helter-skelter for him. I think another year of SEC play would do wonders for his resume, would do wonders for his draft stock. Certainly would do wonders for South Carolina. He comes back, and let's say Wells comes back with him. I mean, that's an unbelievable 1-2 punch. Fix the offensive line, find yourself a stud running back. You should have a pretty good offense with some of the receivers they have coming back. I think Leggett can have a great year next year. I think he's gotten better and has proven both as a returner and a receiver. He can be that guy. So, I'm just saying, Rattler kind of holds the key. Otherwise, it's who's it going to be? Is it going to be Luke Doty? Is he finally going to get his chance? Can he do the job? You have to change the offense. The guy who's going to be directing the offense is a pro-style guy. Luke Doty doesn't strike me as a pro-style quarterback. Am I right or wrong? He doesn't strike me as he strikes me as a college quarterback in the RPO era. that, runs it as much as he throws it, not the drop back, stand in the pocket, watch your routes unfold and throw the football.
Yeah, he's a lot closer now. Again, I'm not using these guys as comparison talent-wise, but at least to explain what they do. He's a lot closer to Lamar Jackson than he is Tom Brady.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and Corn, and you know what? You may have answered your own
Gamecock
question.
fans would take either one, I'm sure.
Question, I'm sure.
You may have answered your own question, Corn, because how do you fix the Gamecock running game? One thing they might be able to do is if you go with Doty and you steer into that, you lean into that, you may go with a lot more zone read, a lot more RPO, and the threat of the quarterback running may open things up for players from the backfield and may help the offensive line as well. That might be the solution for 2023 in that run game.
All right, let's hit the break, and we'll come back with the recruiting report here on Sports Talk, bottom of the hour. A first edition of First and 10 for 2023 and a final edition of First and 10 for the 2022 season. We'll hear from the coach, Zach Willis, who knows a heck of a lot more than we do and will be a lot smarter in talking about things than we have been. Though I think we've been pretty much cutting edge, pretty smart, eyes on the ball, having been at the ball games, having a feel for what was going on the field, on the sidelines, in the post game. We were there. We can share that with you. So we've done our job, but we'll turn it over to the coach to take it to another level coming up in a few minutes. The USC women, by the way, they are trailing at Georgia 13-8. Oi, be back in a moment. We're with Major Billy Downer of DNR Major. It's always a good time for folks to remember to get those licenses renewed.
Doesn't matter what time of the year, it's always a season in, whether it's fishing or hunting. Make sure to check your licenses, make sure they're up to date. If you need a hunting or fishing license, you may go to www.dnr.sc.gov to purchase your license online or to any local licensed vendor in your local area.
And don't forget to join us for SC Wild from DNR with Major Billy Downer on Sports Talk on the Sports Talk Media Network.
Score a touchdown with Founders Federal Credit Union. With services like Founders Online and the Founders app, you'll enjoy all the perks of a big bank with local personalized service. Not a member? Joining Founders Federal Credit Union is easy. Visit relaxjoinfounders.com or one of our 37 convenient locations to see if you qualify for membership. Relax with Founders. Terms and conditions apply. Founders Federal Credit Union is federally insured by NCUA.
When your day calls for some winning, why not watch your favorite football team at Dave & Buster's? We've got massive HD TVs and hundreds of the hottest new games. Sip from our chef-crafted cocktail menu with exclusive drinks such as the Strawberry Watermelon Margarita or Dangerous Waters. Cheer on the team with Cantina Nachos or wings featuring one of our 12 wing flavors. When your day calls for some winning, it's time for Dave & Buster's, where you can watch the games and play the games. Locations in Greenville, Columbia, and Myrtle Beach.
Join the Trailblaze Challenge, the endurance hike program where big hearts come together for big steps to create hope for local Wish families through Make-A-Wish, South Carolina. This spring, take part in a new journey on the Palmetto Trail. From sunrise on the highest peak in South Carolina to the coastal marshes of the Lowcountry, hikers of all levels can support critically ill children, enjoy and explore the outdoors, and build South Carolina pride and community through an all-inclusive hike experience. Visit sctrailblazechallenge.org to learn how to get started. That's sctrailblazechallenge.org.
South Carolina's taste buds have spoken, and they're asking for beef. There are more than 7,800 farms raising cattle from pasture to plate in the Palmetto State. So whether it's steaks on the grill before the big game, sirloin medallions plated for date night, or burgers with a family, make sure beef is a part of your playbook this football season. Smoked, grilled, and slow roasted. Find the best way to enjoy your beef at sccattle.org. Beef, it's what's for dinner in South Carolina. Funded by the South Carolina Beef Council, part of the Beef Checkoff program.
All right, the first recruiting report of 2023 brought to you by our good old standbys at Seawell's. Don't forget the Seawell's Daily Luncheon Buffet. The first one of 2023 will be on Wednesday. Okay, that's when the year really begins. When Seawell's, you think the new year begins when Seawell's, when they drop the ball in New York? No, it's when Seawell's drops the roast beef on Wednesday. When that roast beef hits the juicy platter, that's when the new year begins in Columbia, and you get splashed by that delicious gravy, and you're licking gravy off your forearm and all that kind of good stuff. Make plans to get over to Seawell's for the daily luncheon buffet on Wednesday. They're back in action Wednesday from 11 till 2. And, of course, now a new year means a lot of things you got coming up. You got weddings. You got anniversaries. You got what else? Graduations. You got birthdays. You got all kind of things coming up. You need the best in the catering business. You just give Seawell's a call. They'll come to you or host at their facility on Rosewood Drive. Their phone number is 803-771-7385. So South Carolina, obviously, still looking for some help on the offensive line. And Sunday, they offered Sidney Fugar, 6'6", 330, a transfer from Western Illinois with 3 years of eligibility remaining, and they are in great shape with him. He's been talking with offensive analyst and fill-in offensive line coach Lonnie Teasley. The conversations have gone well, and he calls the Gamecocks his favorites right now. Fugar is a native of Waldorf, Maryland. He has known Teasley since Teasley was at North Carolina Central, obviously recruited him back then, and he likes how he has kind of slimmed down over the years, and he likes his kick step. He likes his punch, and so the Gamecocks are going after him. Now, things are going to move quickly. He plans to visit Cincinnati in a couple of days and then visit USC this weekend. Transfers have a period of time during this dead period when they can visit, and so he's going to do that. He's also looking at Memphis for a possible visit. So keep an eye on this one for South Carolina. Since entering the portal back in December, he's also received offers from Murray State, Northern Arizona, Southern Illinois, Northwestern State, Troy, Hawaii, Eastern Kentucky, ODU, and East Carolina. If you ask me, if I'm a transfer and I get an offer from Hawaii, I'm taking a visit.
There's no question.
They're hosting me for an official visit. Absolutely. He played in 9 games this season. He was named the team's offensive lineman of the year, appeared in 1 game in 21 and was redshirted. New Year's Day was cut down day for several players as they shortened their list to some degree. Safety KJ Bolden of Beaufort, Georgia, has Clemson and USC in his top 15. Here we go. As Mike Morgan would say, Georgia, Florida State, Michigan State, Oregon, Alabama, Ohio State, Colorado, LSU, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Michigan, Ole Miss, and Southern Cal. Then there's defensive tackle Heaven Brown Schuler, has USC and Clemson in his top 13. With Georgia, Michigan, Penn State, Colorado, Southern Cal, Ohio State, Oklahoma, Texas A&M, North Carolina, Oregon, and Virginia. Then there is King Joseph Edwards, and he cut his list to 15. He's a defensive end. USC, Alabama, Georgia, NC State, Southern Cal, Ohio State, Penn State, Oregon, Cincinnati, Texas, Texas A&M, Michigan, Michigan State, Pitt, and Oklahoma. Clemson cornerback offer, Charles Lester III of Sarasota. He did not include the Tigers in his top 5, Florida State, Ohio State, Alabama, Florida, and Georgia. Transfer offensive lineman Marcellus Johnson, who's been offered by USC. He picked up offers over the weekend from Colorado and Auburn, also recently from Virginia, Oklahoma State, Illinois, Kansas, Wisconsin, and Missouri. Daniel wide receiver Eli Merck was offered a PWO opportunity at Oklahoma. Heck of a receiver. He had 171 catches, 3,270 yards, and 49 touchdowns during the season. He also played in the Touchstone Energy Cooperatives Bowl. He had 4 catches for 59 yards and 1 of 35 yards. In basketball, USC target 6'2" Elijah Crawford was offered by Mississippi State. And USC's in the top 12 with 6'10" Ace Bailey of Powder Springs, Georgia. That reminds me, Ace Bailey reminds me of the Ace Basin down in the Low Country. You know what makes up the Ace Basin? Anybody name the three rivers that make the Ace Basin? The word ace is the first letter off of each of the rivers. Think about that. The other schools
got to be one of them.
The other schools on his list, no, it's not. The other schools on the list are Kentucky, Georgia, Rutgers, Auburn, Texas, Memphis, Tennessee, Kansas, West Virginia, Arkansas, and Oregon. And there you go with recruiting, brought to you by Seawells. One is the Ashapoo. One is
the Combahee and the Edisto.
Edisto.
Oh, the Combahee.
Yeah, okay.
The Combahee. Yeah. Be right back.
On Point Weather is made possible by our friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union on 107 The Point.
Here's your on-point local weather. It's a mix of sun and clouds with mild temperatures continuing all day long. Our high temperature is 70. Look for a low tonight at 51. Now for tomorrow, mostly cloudy skies and warm. 72 is the high. A 60% chance we get some afternoon and evening showers. And it's a 90% chance of rain on Wednesday. I'm Kevin Cohen with that on-point local weather.
Hey, it's the Cigar Militia. We want to thank the Midlands for a wonderful first year. Thank you for helping us grow. We had no idea we had so many good friends out there. One thing I love about the cigar culture is we all have our favorite brands, but we're also willing to try new ones too. Come in and get your old standby or have one of our knowledgeable staff members walk you through the humidor to your new favorite. We're at 1410 Colonial Life Boulevard in the same plaza as the Melting Pot Restaurant.
With SRN News, I'm Keith Peters reporting evacuation warnings were in place in rural Northern California on New Year's Day after a powerful storm brought drenching rain or heavy snowfall to much of the state, breaching levees, snarling traffic, and closing major highways. Major flooding occurred in agricultural areas south of Sacramento, where rivers swelled and floods inundated dozens of cars along State Route 99. Residents of one low-lying community were ordered to leave, and others were told to prepare to leave before roadways are cut off by rising water. More than 4 feet of snow fell in the Sierra. It was the first of several storms expected to roll across California over the span of a week. A man accused of attacking police with a machete near New York's Times Square on New Year's Eve was arrested on charges of attempting to murder police officers. More details at srnnews.com.
Hey, it's Jay with the Melting Pot. So this is the time of year when we try to be responsible and plan out the next 12 months. I'm not good at it either, so let's work on this together. Go and grab your calendar, whether it's on your phone or on your refrigerator. Find your anniversary, your best friend's birthday, your kid's birthday, your spouse's birthday, graduation day, and write in Melting Pot. We're the premier special occasion restaurant in the Midlands, the Melting Pot.
Sonic has something delicious for you. Hey, announcer guy, that's your cue.
Try the new Sonic Steak and Bacon Grilled Cheese. Savory steak mixed with grilled onions, topped with crispy bacon and melty American cheese, plus creamy mayo and tangy barbecue sauce. Or try it spicy with zesty cheese sauce and jalapenos.
Well, I don't know about you, but I'm definitely craving that previously mentioned thing.
Sonic Steak and Bacon Grilled Cheese.
Sonic.
Limited time only at participating Sonic drive-ins.
Everyone seems to be hiring these days, but are they good jobs where there's potential for growth? What about on-the-job training and competitive wages, including health insurance and a 401k plan? Professional Printers is looking for their next star. They're a local printer with 2 locations, 130 employees, and a national clientele. If you've got a good attitude, want to learn some great skills, and work in a positive environment, reach out on proprinters.com or apply in person at 301B Greystone Boulevard.
Tired of all the checking account fees and stipulations from the large national banks? Make the switch to a better option at Palmetto Citizens, a local, not-for-profit credit union. They still offer a truly free checking account with no monthly fees or minimum balance requirements. You'll also enjoy other great features like earning reward points and their free savings roundup program. You can even receive your new debit card instantly when you open your account. Easily manage your account online with their app by phone or at one of their over 40 area ATMs. Join Palmetto citizens today to experience the local personalized service that keeps them earning the title of the best local credit union year after year. Begin your membership application online today at palmettocitizens.org or visit any of their 14 convenient Midlands locations. Palmetto Citizens, achieve your potential. This credit union is federally insured by the NCUA.
Hi, honey. How was your first day back at work?
Well, that slip and fall sure did cause me some pain and discomfort. This swollen ankle is no fun. Thanks to True Pharmacy, the day wasn't a complete waste.
I'm so glad they were able to get you all set up with your ACE bandage wrap and even a set of crutches.
Yes, who knew you could rent your crutches from True Pharmacy?
And they even have wheelchairs to rent and sell. That's good information to know in case we ever need it for our parents as they get older.
I'm so glad we found True Pharmacy. True Pharmacy, 2 locations, West Columbia and Divine Street.
All right, let me update a couple of things. Penn State's taking a 21-14 lead on Utah, 4:12 to go in the third quarter. And the Georgia women continue to lead South Carolina 22-17 with 4:15 to go in the second quarter, playing that game in Athens. And the leading scorers right now for South Carolina, you have got Boston's only got 2 points. 2 points, 4 rebounds. Cook's got 6 points. She is the leading scorer for the Gamecocks, who are shooting 27% from the floor, 6 of 22, and Georgia 10 of 22. So they're down right now. Does not sound like the Gamecocks took their shooting touch with them, but there's still plenty of time left. We'll see what happens.
Turnovers, big story in that game early. USC already with 10, and Georgia scored 10 points off turnovers. Yep. And again, for whatever reason, the Gamecocks continue to rely on threes. 1 of 8 from three-point range. It makes zero sense with that team and their height inside.
Yeah, for being such a terrific player, Cook, she's 0 for 5 from 3 to this point. So, okay, let's get back to football. We've done the best that we can to kind of break down the USC-Clemson bowl losses on Friday. Let's welcome in for one final edition of First and 10 with Zach Willis, the coach. Zach Willis. He he's watched the games live. He's looked at the replays. He's broken down the videos. He's done the X's and the O's, in this case, the X's and the woes for the Gamecocks and the Tigers. Good, great to have you with us. We did a poll last week for our listeners, and the poll question was, how are things going to turn out for the bowl games? And only 6% of the voters, 651 votes, 6.8% thought both would lose. Most people thought that USC would win, Clemson would lose, or both would win. But 6.8, almost 7% said both would lose. None of us thought both teams would lose. What was your reaction? Were you shocked? Were you stupefied? Were you not surprised by what you saw?
I was a 50-50 guy. I knew South Carolina was going to I thought they'd have a harder road because of the mass exodus of players that were critical for them in their ball game going up against a team. When I researched Notre Dame's quarterback leaving, I realized the guy returning actually beat him out of the starting job in camp and got hurt. And he wasn't, there wasn't a whole lot of difference. If anything, this kid was more athletic. Was a little bit rusty early, but he came on late. But I mean, it's a mixed reaction for me. I was really proud, if you can use that word as an analyst, of the effort and the game planning that South Carolina did. The way they came out and played, they used everything. Their gun was empty when they finished that ball game, and unfortunately, they gave everything they had in the first 3 quarters, and with no depth on defense, nor offense for that matter, not too much. They just ran out of gas, and Notre Dame was a better team, and it showed at the end of the game. That offensive line is one of the best in the country. I think they're better than Michigan, and if you watch both those games, you could probably see that. With Clemson, boy, I don't know how deep you want me to go off the start, but I'll just say
deep,
disappointed.
Deep.
Well, extremely disappointed. Very, in the first half alone, the lost opportunities in the red zone, dominated between the 20s and just could not make a field goal. The fake field goal was there. All you got to do is pitch the ball. If he stumbles and falls, he's got 15 yards. He's probably going to score. Just pitch the ball. And then B.T. Potter, it just shows you how good my old buddy Nelson Welch was at kicking field goals back in the day. He finally broke his record, but if they're going to lose the bowl game, I wish Nelson could have kept the record. I'm sorry, I'm biased. Don't know B.T. Nelson's my buddy, but I felt for him, but they just looked to me like they took a few steps backwards, and they didn't lose the number of people that South Carolina. In fact, Tennessee, I thought had lost more with 2 All-American receivers and Hendon Hooker out. Man, you couldn't tell it. They played a great game. Although if you look at the numbers, Clemson dominated many categories, but just could not capitalize and finish. And that is a big word in coaching. If you know how to win, you got to finish. And they didn't finish well.
Zach Willis joining us here on Sports Talk. Zach, something we've talked about tonight is that Clemson seemed to not abandon the run, but they didn't enter with that game plan. They came out with a game plan. It looked like they were going to lay it on the arm of Cade Klubnik. Tell us, take us into the room and the coaching staff as you prep for a bowl game. Why do you think that happened, and do you have the same take on that?
Well, I think that's it certainly appeared. Now, when you look at the stats, at times we saw them run the ball at will at times, and then seemingly abandon the run. Reason for it, I don't know. I do know this. Early in that ball game, that's the worst Clemson's offensive lines performed probably since they started going to the Final Four. You got guys not picking up easy blitzes. I know that Notre Dame ran an odd front, which means that 3-man front a couple of times in the ball game. They gave them some different looks, but their guards, guys that were starters, were making really crazy mistakes and errors. They were letting people run through untouched. It's almost like when South Carolina was struggling, especially in the Muschamp year, it looked like that. The kids didn't, and then they kind of rallied back and got through that. Of course, began to move the ball extremely well and dominated time of possession. But I was another one, just line up and run it right at Tennessee. They're not going to stop the running game. And then Klubnik could come off of that with play action, which they didn't do a ton of. But he's a young freshman quarterback. Dabo mentioned that. I guess their thought was maybe these passes will be easier. To me, running the ball with the running backs you have, the offensive line you have, would have been the safer, effective way to go. But they're probably going to come back and say, well, we missed 3 field goals, had another fake that didn't go well. And then that clock management at the end of the first half, I never thought I'd see that out of a Clemson football team, at least not by this coaching staff anyway. That was crazy.
1st and 10 with Zach Willis, looking back on the bowl season for the Gamecocks and Tigers. And Coach, were you ever part of a ball game where your team had 14 more first downs, possessed the football, say 13 more minutes, or scored 2 defensive touchdowns and a special teams touchdown and end up losing both of those games the way USC and Clemson did?
I'm sure somewhere in my losses there was one of those. I think we had to go up and play I want to say Morehead State, a 1AA program when I was at Newberry, and we lost in the last minute of the game. And it was pretty much the same kind of deal. We just could not convert. We got down inside the red zone. I think Josh threw an interception. Joe Don Reams, who was a great Clemson player in baseball and transferred to us, I think he dropped the one, which I've never seen a kid drop one going back to Seneca. So you have those nights, and I felt for both coaches, but I'll say this: I felt like South Carolina did everything they could, and honestly, Clemson didn't look like Clemson. They got a freshman quarterback. They looked like Clemson against North Carolina. I think we all thought they were back. They blew them off the field. Tennessee's defense isn't that great, but it just when Potter, the missed fake field goal and then Potter missing 3. We've never seen him do that. So I think it has an impact on you. Kicking game is always the last thing people evaluate in the mainstream media, and one of the most vital areas. Nick Saban's lost more games off bad kickers than probably anybody in recent memory. Is a super successful coach, so he can tell you about it. I know Coach Oates tell stories about losing games that way. We all have, and I feel like it's just did Carolina and Clemson play well? Heck yeah, they played well. Should they have won? I think South Carolina honestly did everything they could. Notre Dame was just better. I think Clemson's lost opportunities really, really, really hurt them in the ball game. I thought they were going to win with no problem.
And I'm curious, so you don't have to deal with this when you were coaching, but you would now in terms of the transfer portal. And I want to use Grayson McCall at Coastal Carolina as an example, but he's not alone in this regard. But players that say they're going to enter the transfer portal, go, and then come back to the program. Would you welcome someone like a Grayson McCall back to your program, just using him as an example? Or once they went into the transfer portal, would you try and make sure they ended up someplace else?
Well, it depends on the kid. There's different reasons for entering the transfer portal. And actually, in small college ball, this is nothing new. There's a process. It's too loosey-goosey right now. But we thrived off of transfers from bigger schools coming down to play at the different small colleges I was at. Most of my star players, there were a few that were homegrown, so to speak, but, the rest of them were Division I signees. If a kid is looking, he's got questions, sometimes they go in now and so they don't have to have permission to go in. They don't have to have a signature from a faculty athletic rep. They can go in their dorm room. Heck, they can sit in Starbucks and enter the transfer portal. That's a reckless clause in that policy that they've enacted. I don't know what they can do to fix it, but they need to be able to sit down. So, yes, I would welcome them back now because one night they get down, they get in a fight with a girlfriend, maybe a parent closer to home sick and they're way away from home, and they jump in there impulsively. Then you have to have the conversation about whether or not you leave with the coach that you should have had. And back legislatively, it was mandated beforehand that we had to sign off. Now, there's none of that. And so maybe Grayson has finally gotten to meet the new coach, whatever the case may be. And he says, hey, you know what? It's not so bad. I'm going to stay. He's a big man on campus where he's at. I would take him back in a heartbeat. He's a great kid from what I heard. And it was obvious in that ball game until he got hurt. I got to watch him. He got hurt scoring. He definitely wasn't sliding. He was going head first. And so it's a case-by-case basis. But we need to all remember one thing. These kids now, yes, they can get paid, but they're still kids. And their parents are usually, like my folk, I came from a broken home. If somebody walked around and said, hey, you can have $1 million to come play at the school I support, some booster or collective, which we have no control over those people that I know of. It's going to be hard for me to say no, and I can help my grandparents live in a way that nobody in our family's ever lived in the history of our family, that we can go back until we came over on the boat. We were always poor. You got to look at the socioeconomic and educational ramifications of what's going on here if you're a head coach and you love your players and understand, okay, the media, you guys ask phenomenal questions. And honestly, if you want to know why South Carolina lost that game, their two leading rushers were gone. They had the Adkins kid needs an award for the guts he showed the way he's played at the end of this year. He's a true coach's son, and it makes you proud to see a coach's kid. And Greg Atkins is a great guy anyway. It makes you proud to see him do what he did. But everybody doesn't have mom and dad and leave it to Beaver type. Ozzie and Harry, maybe I'm out from aging myself there, but that kind of background, and they're looking, I can make this money and send it back to mom and dad. That's most of our kids that got their Pell money went back home to help the parents pay bills or help mom or grandmama, really, a lot of times, who was raising them. So you got to give a little leniency there. But at the end of the day, the transfer portal crippled South Carolina. Shane Beamer did an absolutely phenomenal job, and I hope they're renegotiating his contract because he's proven he can do it. Doesn't matter how. I heard one guy say, well, he's a little goofy. Well, goofy wins, buddy, because he got as much out of that team. And the game plan against special teams, Pete Limbo, phenomenal. And the defense improved. Look how good the offensive line played. Notre Dame isn't a joke. Ask Clemson about them. They can tell you. And they played a great game. Clemson played hard. They just made a few mistakes down the stretch. And those things happen. At the end of the day, we had two teams with great years. Coastal still had a great year. I wanted to see them all win. We all did. And I know the Carolina Clemson people want each team playing to crash, whatever they'll say they do. But the truth of the matter is, well, I've heard them say it. I've heard them tell me. I've got relatives that would say when I coach South Carolina, I love you, and I'll coach as long as you coach there. I'll pull for you. But one time, time of year, and I hope y'all's bus breaks down the way or whatever. But, that's good fun, and you get a good laugh out of it. But when real life inserts itself, we have to have some compassion and some forgiveness if a kid's impulsive. I would always at least take the option to sit down with that young man, even if he's already entered, and say, let's take a look at this. What's best for you? The NFL things are different, but I will say one thing. They interviewed Notre Dame's 2 NFL draft guys, and they made the mistake. It wasn't really a mistake. It's a very good question. What have you been doing since you left the team getting ready for that? Well, it's a complex process. This was an answer both of them gave. Complex process. I've been spending time with family and just trying to recover from the season. They ain't been doing nothing. That's what they've been doing. They got out of bowl practice, which some guys, we used to have 2-a-day bowl practices. Ask folks that played for Danny Ford. They'd had 2-a-days again. Bowl practice is tough because you develop people, you scrimmage a lot, and the last week you prepare for your opponent. You want to qualify for that bowl because there's at least an extra month of practice you get in over people that don't qualify. So it's a grind. Nobody's on campus. Your girlfriend's gone home to spend the holidays. None of your buddies are there. It's just you there by yourself with your teammates until you go to the bowl site. Now, I'm going to be honest, those bowl practices aren't any fun either. So there's a whole bunch of stuff going on that when I rate these things and look at them, I'm really not happy that any of them lost. I want them all to win. I live in Kentucky. I'm going to talk trash to everybody about how good state of South Carolina football is. But, that's how I see it. I think that I get frustrated with this transfer portal stuff because it's not in the best interest of the kids. They're not looking out for them the way they need to. They need to have people around them to advise them and help them that understand this. They only go through it one time. And you got agents and you got people at other schools and collectives that have been doing this type of work for 20 years versus a family who's never had any idea of what they're dealing with and nobody to advise and help them unless they ask for it. So I would ask for leniency with the players and a little bit more rules for these collectives because it's like the Wild West right now. Anybody can call up some kid and say, hey, we're going to offer you $1 million, $500,000, and it's a bidding war to get these kids in there, not knowing if this kid's going to fit there culturally, socially, academically, or anything. They don't look at that at all. So take it easy on the kids and try to tighten things down on these adults who are flashing this money at them.
That's a great statement and a great way to wrap it up for this year. And we'll see what things develop over the next several months in college football. There's so many issues to be dealt with. And we'll see if anybody steps up and takes the dog by the tail here and say, okay, we got to fix this. We got to tighten this up. We got to make this work better. We'll see what happens over the next several months. As always, we thank you for being a part of Sports Talk and sharing your thoughts with us every week. Can't wait to have you back with us come next August. Let's see. The Gamecocks will be taking on North Carolina to open the season, so get ready for that. And Clemson will be opening up against, I think it's Charleston Southern. They open up against. Nope. That's that would be September 9th. Who was their first game against? I got to go back here and find who their first game against. But whatever the case may be, we'll be talking to you about it, sir, come next summer. And have a great off season, and we'll talk again soon. Thank you for your time as always.
Well, I'm honored to be here, and thanks to all the folks out there that listen and comment. I really appreciate you guys. Have a great year, Phil.
Okay, Zach. Thanks, you,
Coach.
The coach,
Thank you.
Zach Willis, 1st and 10 with us here on Sports Talk. And there's only one way to equal that. Tomorrow night, 7:05, our final edition of Chalk Talk for this football season with Chuck Reedy and Ellis Johnson. That's right. More analysis. We'll break it down. And they'll be with us tomorrow night. So we look forward to that. We'll hit the break and be back in just a moment.
Life. It has its ups and downs. Sometimes it's little things like hitting every red light or dropping your cell phone. Maybe it's the bills, rent, or pressure at work. But when it comes to the South Carolina Education Lottery, you should never feel like playing will solve everything. The lottery is a game. It's played for fun. So set a dollar amount. Expect not to win and make sure responsibilities, family, friends, and work come first. Visit playresponsiblysc.com.
Hi, I'm Jim Corbett. I've been an attorney for more than 30 years. There's one thing I've learned about injury cases. It's you need the personal touch. You need the lawyer to get to know you and describe your damages. You don't want a case manager talking to an insurance company, then talking to you, and then talking to maybe to a lawyer with limited experience at the last minute to try to settle a case. I talk to you. I find out what your case is about. Jim at JimCorbettAttorney.com. Jim at JimCorbettAttorney.com for your injury cases.
When your day calls for some winning, why not watch your favorite football team at Dave & Buster's? We've got massive HD TVs and hundreds of the hottest new games. Sip from our chef-crafted cocktail menu with exclusive drinks such as the Strawberry Watermelon Margarita or Dangerous Waters. Cheer on the team with Cantina Nachos or wings featuring one of our 12 wing flavors. When your day calls for some winning, it's time for Dave & Buster's, where you can watch the games and play the games. Locations in Greenville, Columbia, and Myrtle Beach.
So it must be an ACC team that Clemson will open up against because there are 4 non-ACC games. Those dates are set. Charleston Southern, September 9, that's at Clemson. Florida Atlantic the next week, that's at Clemson. Notre Dame at home, November 4th. Ooh. And the Gamecocks in Columbia, November 25th. So it's going to be an ACC team to open. You don't think they'll put the Florida State game at Clemson on Labor Day weekend, do you? Would they do that?
No, because you know how stupid college football is with Labor Day games. It's got to be neutral site games. So it'll be somebody who wouldn't draw very well at home, i.e. Georgia Tech, that you'd put in a neutral site game. Or if they were going to play Florida State, they'd have to do it in a neutral site. I doubt either school would agree to that.
Would they make the Tigers?
Sorry, Georgia Tech and Louisville, by the way, are doing exactly what you're saying, Chris, and they're playing in the Chick-fil-A kickoff next year. So that takes away one of those games.
Yeah. And Louisville is not on Clemson's schedule for wait a minute, it has to be.
No, remember next year there's no
next year's
divisions.
Oh, you're right. You're right. There is no division.
Yep.
So Clemson's
I'll tell you a
ACC
fun one.
games. Let me mention this real quick, Smitty. Clemson's ACC games next year. Then I'm glad you reminded me of that. Home to Florida State, Georgia Tech, Wake Forest, and North Carolina. Those are their home ACC games. Their road ACC games are Duke, NC State, Syracuse, and North Carolina. So. You know what? And no, I'm sorry. I said North Carolina's home at Miami. Let me do that again. Duke, NC State, Syracuse, and Miami are their road games. And I can tell you all about getting to Miami and where to stay if you need any advice on that right now and how to get around Hard Rock Stadium. But go ahead, Smitty.
Oh, that's the point I was going to bring up. That next year's the new model, and I don't know what the dates would look like. But, boy, you wouldn't want to be Mac Brown in North Carolina if you had to open with South Carolina and Clemson in back-to-back weeks, would you? No,
that can't happen because Clemson's already set for September 9th, Charleston Southern.
Well, guys, here's something I'm seeing here that may give us a little clarity. Clemson was previously scheduled to open the 2023 season at home against Wofford. However, Wofford instead will travel to take on Pitt on that same date. It's currently unknown whether that game will be rescheduled. Hold on, skipping ahead there. This shows as of now, Clemson's opening game will be hosting Charleston Southern on September 9th. So unless they've changed that,
they're not going to skip Labor Day.
They wouldn't open up on. No, they wouldn't have a bye at the beginning.
No, they're going to have an ACC game to open up. Maybe on the road. Maybe they're going to put them on the road at Duke or State or Syracuse or Miami. Who knows? And Chris, you got a nice little trip to open up the 23 season. You dog.
Yeah, as soon as Utah and Penn State get tired of tearing up the field at the Rose Bowl, the next game that will actually be in there will be UCLA and Coastal Carolina to open up the season next year.
Oh, my. What a place for Tim Beck to begin his career with the Chanticleers out in the Rose Bowl against UCLA. Penn State's winning, by the way, 35-14, going to the fourth quarter. Yeah, that'll be a fun trip, man. That'd be a fun trip. You need somebody to carry your luggage or anything, or
absolutely
handle your microphones for you or anything like that.
I've been out there for basketball. Going to Paulie's was a bucket list item for sure. I want to go see the Rose Bowl though in person as well.
Yeah. Okay, and of course South Carolina will be opening up in Charlotte against North Carolina. Drake May and company. And, look, great opportunity for South Carolina's offense against that putrid North Carolina defense. I can't believe they'll be any better next year. But they better have their defense in line because, Drake May is capable of eating them up, depending on who he's got to throw to. Is Caleb Downs going to be back? Is it Caleb? Whichever Downs kid that is. The Downs kid, the wide receiver. Is he back next year at North Carolina? If he is, look out because he is hard to cover. USC women looking at a 3-point deficit as we go to the second half, trailing in Athens 29-26. And I got a feeling they're going to turn this thing around. I can't believe that Boston only took 2 shots in the first half.
Way too much reliance on the 3-point shot. I realize that Georgia and every other team that Carolina faces playing zone, but you need to attack the zone inside because you're too good on the interior.
Cook took 11 shots, and everybody else took Cardoso took 7. But anyway, we'll see what happens. That'll do it. Thank you for being with us. Have a great night. See you tomorrow.
From the Bart Fireside Studio, the solution for keeping you warm this winter.
This is